Hi, this is going to be a video on Unit 3, Activity 4. And this is the last activity of Unit 3, our media unit. And it's going to focus on advertising, which is a big part of media. The activity is broken up into 3 different parts. So part number 1 says Introduction to Advertising. And so it'll try to explain what advertising is, and it'll try to explain how advertising is everywhere. The idea is that it's impossible to avoid advertising. When you're walking down the street, there are advertisements everywhere. They're on billboards, they're on buildings, they're on people's clothing. It's pretty hard to avoid advertising wherever you go. And of course, if you turn on the television or go on the internet, you can't avoid advertising. It's everywhere. So the idea is going to be to try to explain what advertising is and to try to give you a sense for how much it is involved in your life, and how even if you were to try, you couldn't really get away from it. And if we're going to spend that much time with something, if advertising is going to be around us all the time, then it's important to take a look at how it's impacting us. And so that's part 1, is just an introduction to how advertising is everywhere and hopefully giving you a sense of how far it goes. Part 2 is on advertising techniques. And so it'll look at the different ways that companies and organizations and governments use different techniques. You can say that they're a little bit sneaky and tricky to try to manipulate and persuade us in their advertisements. And so you'll see a number of different techniques here, like star power, which means a company will use someone famous to promote their product. And then you'll have an example here. For example, when Michael Jordan, the famous basketball player, does commercials for Nike, that would be an example of star power. You also have something called wish fulfillment, where an advertisement will try to show that if you buy their product or use their service, your wishes will be granted, your dreams will come true. And so, for example, you'll often see this with makeup commercials for women, and they'll suggest that if a woman buys a certain type of makeup or buys a certain type of beauty product, then they'll all of a sudden be very good looking, and all of the men will like them. And it's the same thing for men. You'll often see commercials for cologne that'll suggest that if a man wears a certain cologne, that women will run to him and he'll be very attractive. And so that's wish fulfillment. Now, does a cologne or does makeup actually make that happen? No. It's just the advertisement trying to connect their product with your dreams or your fantasies. Also, advertisers use nostalgia. They try to make you think, when you watch certain ads, that make you feel like you're in your childhood and make you think of your parents and make you think of your grandparents. If they can make you look back on your life and attach their product to your memories, it's a good way of convincing you. Bandwagon thinking is another technique. So they suggest that everyone is buying something, so you should buy it too. And so you'll see a lot of commercials and advertisements that will say that they're the #1 selling toothpaste or the #1 selling detergent, trying to convince you that since other people are buying it, you should buy it too. Fear. Advertisements use fear a lot. For example, they'll suggest if you don't use their product that something bad will happen to you. You see this a lot in insurance ads, where they'll try to sell you insurance and try to convince you that if you don't buy a certain insurance, that something bad will happen to you or your family. Facts and figures. You'll see a lot of times in commercials that they'll use numbers and statistics to try to convince you. One of my favorites is when you see commercials for toothpaste and they say things like 3 out of 4 dentists recommend this toothpaste. Well, all they have to do to make that true is go around and ask a lot of different dentists, and once they get their number that they're looking for, they can just say it's true. So they could go and ask 4 dentists, what toothpaste do you recommend? And maybe those dentists don't recommend their brand. So they say, okay, forget about that survey. And then they'll go ask another 4 dentists and another 4 dentists. And eventually they'll find 3 out of 4 dentists that will agree with them. And so a number in an advertisement should not be taken as truthful. They use numbers in a manipulative way to kind of try to trick us. Humor, you'll find a lot of advertisements that try to use humor and comedy to make us laugh. And if they can make us laugh, the argument is they can get our attention and hopefully convince us to buy products. Sex appeal, of course, they use a lot of sex appeal in advertising. They use, women wearing very little clothes, or they use big muscular men. They try to sell us sort of attractive people in sex appeal. And then weasel words. Well, it's illegal to come out and say a direct lie in advertising, but that doesn't mean that they tell the whole truth. They can find ways to say something that's not truthful without actually technically legally lying. So you'll see a lot of times they'll say phrases like, Coke Zero has never tasted better. Well, tasted better than what? That doesn't really mean anything. They're not proving anything. It's just a statement to try to make their product sound good. So be careful when you watch advertisements, because all of these different methods are used to try to manipulate you into thinking that a product is something that it's not. We also need to understand target audience. So what advertisers also do is they focus on specific audiences to sell their product. So sometimes they'll focus on a certain age or a certain gender or a certain social class. So maybe they'll focus on people that have a lot of money and are upper class, or maybe they'll focus on the middle class, or maybe they'll focus on people that don't have very much money. They'll focus on people that have certain interests. Like, for example, maybe they're selling a game, a video game, so they're going to focus on people that already own video game systems. And then sometimes they'll focus on people based on their education. So sometimes they'll focus advertisements towards people that are professionals and have a university degree. And sometimes they'll focus their ads on people that are still in high school or maybe don't have as much education yet. And so they'll use all of these different sort of categories to try to tailor and create their advertisements to reach the people that they think will buy their product. Now, sometimes they'll focus on one very specific audience. So a pretty obvious example would be companies that sell golf equipment. I don't watch much golf and I don't play golf, but the only time that I ever see advertisements for golfing is during golf tournaments. And so they wouldn't advertise golf clubs and golf equipment during cartoons or during soap operas, because the argument would be that the people that are watching cartoons and soap operas are probably not playing golf. So they very specifically target golf tournaments on TV and show their advertisements during those tournaments because they know that golfers are watching the golf tournaments. So that's pretty obvious. That's pretty straightforward. But then you have other products that try to target more than one audience. And so, for example, pizza. Pizza is, lots of people eat pizza, right? You have teenagers and married couples and seniors and little kids and people with all sorts of different educations and backgrounds and men and women. And so when you're advertising pizza, you can't be as specific as when you're advertising golf clubs. You probably want to advertise on different channels during different shows and different magazines because you know that all sorts of different people are going to buy pizza. So what I would expect from you is that, and you'll have to do this when you look at your assignment at the ending of this activity, is I would expect you to be able to look at an advertisement and try to identify who you think the target audience is. Who is the company trying to reach? Are they trying to reach a specific age group, a specific gender? Are they trying to reach men or women? Are they trying to reach a specific social class or someone with specific interests? So that's one thing you'll have to do in your assignment is show me that you can identify who the advertisement is targeting. You'll also, if we go back up here, have to be able to show me in your assignment that you can identify some of these different techniques in an advertisement. So make sure you read through advertising techniques and target audience. Make sure you read through those sections clearly and maybe take notes so that you have a full understanding. All right, part 3. This is just going to be some examples of different types of ads. So we'll look at print advertisements. And so there's an example of a print advertisement here for Coke. The argument is that print advertisements no longer try to sell products. So for example, when you look at this advertisement for Coke, they're not talking about how much a Coke costs or what a Coke tastes like. They're trying to say that Coke is connected to friendship and happiness. So they're using their product to try to sell our basic human needs, to try to sell us happiness and friendship. So they realize in advertising that if they just tell us, here is the product, this is what it's made out of, this is what it tastes like, that most people will not go out and buy Coke. They'll go out and buy Coke, though, if they can manipulate people into thinking that Coke is connected with friendship and happiness and with our basic human needs. So you'll see this in almost all advertisements now. They don't sell us a product or a service. They sell us ideas and lifestyles and our needs. That's what they're trying to sell us. Another example would be advertising jingles or songs. They use songs to try to stick in our heads so that we'll remember the product. And so here are some famous examples throughout advertising history of some famous advertising songs. And then here is a specific example. Kit Kat chocolate bar has the Gimme a Break song, and they've had that going on probably 30 or 40 years. They've been using that song. And again, the idea is they're not selling you a chocolate bar. If you watch the video, it's all about family and people taking breaks to spend time with their kids and to spend time with their parents. And so they're trying to sell you this idea of a break and trying to sell you this idea that they understand that you work hard and that you need a break from your work. And you can do that by eating a Kit Kat bar. So again, they're not selling you the chocolate. They're selling you the idea of a break. And then lastly, television commercials. And these are probably the most obvious examples of advertisements. And so we have an example here from a security company that's trying to sell a security alarm. And so they're going to show a commercial here, if you take a look, where a burglar is trying to break into a house with a mother and a child inside the house. And so they're trying to sell you fear. They're trying to imply that if you don't buy their security system, then you're going to be in a dangerous situation and your child could be hurt. So again, they're trying to use our feelings and our needs to sell us their products. Okay, and that's what we're trying to get across here. And that's it for the content. Once you've gone through the examples and gone over the advertising techniques and have a good understanding of what advertising is, you can move on to the assignment. I hope that helps, and if you have any questions about the content in this activity, please let me know.